Exactly half of Nebraska's winter wheat crop is in poor or very poor condition. 33% is in fair, 16% is rated as good, which leaves only 1% of this year's crop in excellent shape. That fits the mold, as 42% of U.S. winter wheat is in the worst two categories. Nebraska, which hasn't started harvest yet, usually has a good jump by this time of the year. The 5-year average shows completion at 15%. At the Wheat Variety Tour last week in Sydney, we talked with Baenziger about seed supply after this drought, selecting the right variety, and how Nebraska's winter wheat crop looks from east to west.
First of all, what you need to know, in Nebraska, historically, there are three major ecogeographical regions. One is the east, one is the southwest district, and one is the panhandle, or the west district. Sydney is in the panhandle district, okay? This year, the wheat in the panhandle looks remarkably good for as dry as it's been. I think we're going to do fairly well. The real drought was in the southwest district, and parts of that were disastrous, and parts of it are below average, okay? And in the east, we've had a lot of moisture since the first of the year, and so that wheat looks phenomenal other than the diseases coming in.
Any areas where abandonment is a definite possibility?
Well, there's certainly abandonment going on in the southwest district, and there's even some abandonment going on in the panhandle. And the reason for that is the rains always are spotty, and so if you missed a few rains, it's the difference between having a wheat crop and not.
Overall, as you look at the U.S. wheat crop, or I guess in the Midwest, what do years like this do to the seed supply and the difficulty that growers face in finding that for the next year?
Well, the seed supply is huge because if you think about it, in Nebraska, we've got pretty good seed supply. First of all, we have a tremendous amount of certified seed being sold. We think over half our crop now is being planted to certified seed. That's huge for the Great Plains. When I first came here, some states were 3% certified seed planted, so 97% was farmer saved. But the main thing is it's very rare when you have three ecological zones that you lose your crop everywhere. So quite often Nebraska, and in part because we're the #1 irrigated state, we're the ones that can produce seed when nobody else can. So Texas had terrible freezes. That's ruined their seed. Oklahoma's had a lot of freezes. That's certainly harmed their seed. They say that the drought in Colorado, which then extends into southwestern Nebraska, has damaged the seed lot there too. So the southern Great Plains are desperate for seed, and we understand also that the north, South Dakota's had difficulty with drought too. So we think seed will be an extremely short supply in the Great Plains, and that the people who do have seed will be able to sell it, all of it, and the people who need seed should be buying it early.
Do years like this make a difference in your decision-making process in the future as to what varieties you choose to go after, or how much more difficult does that selection become?
It works both ways. You should always use every year to learn from. Last year was probably the more extreme year. This year is sort of a more, it's atypical, but it's not unusual. Last year was the earliest year in history since I came here. It was 2 weeks earlier than anything we had previously. So it was massively early. At the same time, we learned something about wheats. You know, wheats that do well there and then did well the previous year, which was a more normal year, and then do very well this year, which is a little bit abnormal, boy, that wheat will be able to do well in almost any year. So you can learn quite a bit. What you have to watch for are the wheats that are not so broadly adapted or not so flexible that in an average year will still do very, very well. That you don't want to throw away.
I'll ask you a very broad question here to close out with. What are the major advancements that have been made in seed and in their yield, and what needs to be done going forward?
Well, the major advancement in seed has probably been the yield. I mean, you know, that's been what we can do now. Well, you know, basically, if you looked in the trials at Scout 66, that's probably 20 bushels off the pace of what our modern wheats can do. So we've made tremendous advantages that way. We've also made tremendous advantages in diseases. Now, there's still diseases we have to work on. Stripe rust, leaf rust change periodically. Stem rust, not so much. We still need to do better on our viruses. Barley yellow dwarf is one that's been very difficult to work with. We finally have wheat streak mosaic virus under control, and we need to do that in many, many more types of things. So there's a lot of things we can do there. The wheat stem sawfly is coming into western Nebraska. We'll need to start creating lines that are resistant to that because, to the best of our knowledge, there is no insecticide that'll work well for that. So we just have a lot of things that keep, changing and making differences and those types of things.